Today's webinar, Talent Brand, the Missing Piece of Your Brand Puzzle, will be presented by Sarah Mueller. As the Manager of Talent Development, Sarah oversees recruitment, talent development, and HR at Whitnorth. Sarah completed her Master's in Organizational Development and Leadership with the intent to expand her expertise in human behavior and adult psychology to drive strategic planning initiatives that serve employees and ultimately clients. Combining belief in human potential with a focus on business outcomes, Sarah drives people strategies which enable Whitnorth to attract, engage, and retain top talent. With that, I'll turn it over to our speaker.
Well, thanks, Olivia, and hello, everybody. Again, apologies for the delay getting started here, but I have to say I am really excited about this topic, and it's something that I've been thinking about a lot lately because, as Olivia just mentioned, I recently completed my master's degree in organization development, and one of my main responsibilities at Whitnorth is to think about how we engage employees in a way that results in better service for our clients and ultimately business growth for Whitnorth. So I truly believe that a strong talent brand plays the most critical role in achieving this goal for professional services firms. Talent brand is a concept that over the past 5 years has really become a hot topic, but my interest in this concept started, I think, in 2008 when I first took Intro to Marketing and Intro to Management classes at the University of Iowa, and I actually ended up getting a double major from business school with degrees in both marketing and management with HREC and HR, because I have genuinely always found the intersection of marketing and people management to be an incredibly compelling piece of a brand's puzzle and business strategy, and that intersection is right where talent brand lives and breathes. Right. Today I'm going to talk about why this topic is especially critical within the PSO vertical, the dynamics of talent brand, and those dynamics require a strategic partnership between marketing and HR recruiting teams, and why both teams' roles are so important, the market data and statistics that prove the value of a talent brand, including employee engagement star role. I'm going to talk through my opinion of why you should consider employer and talent brand separate entities that warrant their own strategies, how EVP and CVP play into brand identity, and key steps to assess and build your brand, citing a few examples of businesses who are doing this well. So there are 3 key drivers of success in professional services firms: revenue growth, a positive client experience and client stickiness, and top talent. There are so many more connections than you may think to the client buying experience and the employee or prospective employee experience. People choose to work for you for the same reasons your clients hire you, and I think those reasons live within your core business values. So PSOs have to find a way to market both the client and the employee experience, highlighting an alignment between the two and what makes that special. You really can't sell business if you don't have the people to do the work, and if you hire the right people, you can propel your company forward, while hiring the wrong people can really sink the ship. So these 3 success indicators require a partnership between marketing and HR recruiting professionals, particularly in creating a brand identity that speaks to each of these 2 key audiences, which is customers or prospective customers and employees or prospective employees, in a way that's authentic and compelling and really consistent. So PR efforts between sales and recruiting are becoming blurry, and these 2 areas often overlap. So, for example, when Accenture made the decision last year to eliminate annual performance reviews, their CEO revealed it in the Washington Post. When Barclays announced that the changes it was making to its parental leave policy, or announced that it was making changes, it was done through their public relations team. JPMorgan Chase raised wages for thousands of retail bank employees and publicized that decision through the New York Times. These are all examples of organizational changes that were made with the intent to improve the employee experience. But what I find so interesting is that in the past, the communication of these types of changes would have been largely or even exclusively driven internally with the purpose of educating employees about what was happening. But now, employees or job seekers are no longer the only target for marketing internal and organizational initiatives. These changes are being pushed to the consumer. In publicizing changes around talent strategies, I think companies are really trying to say to their consumers, hey, we have great people, therefore we're going to provide you with great products and services. And when companies are advertising new policies that support the well-being of their people, they're saying, you should buy services from us because we care about doing the right thing for our employees, and you should too. And these companies are smartly using HR as PR to drive the performance of their business. So in addition to the evolving recruitment and HR marketing initiatives, we really have to talk about the state of the labor market. The unemployment rate has dramatically decreased over the past decade. 9 years ago in May, the employment rate was almost at 9.5%. 5 years ago, look, it's at 7.5%. And again, this past May, look at unemployment. It's reported at 3.8%, which is even a decrease from this time last year where it was at 4.3%. So while this is all good news for the economy and job seekers, employers are definitely starting to feel the squeeze of the tightening labor market. Additionally, there are more open jobs and more companies hiring than ever before. Job openings reached a new series high of 6.7 million. There were 5.6 million hires in April. Over 200,000 jobs were created just last month. So for all, I mean, this is becoming super transparent that because everyone's hiring, the competition to attract the best talent is so fierce, and it's most definitely a job seekers market. I think specifically we're seeing a significant increase in employment within professional services. And in professional services, of course, you're also selling your people. You can't succeed and outperform your competitors without the best of the best talent, which makes the competitive landscape within professional services even hotter right now. And of course, we certainly can't ignore the impact of millennials in the workforce, who are currently eclipsing other generations in the labor force and will make up 75% of the workforce in the next 10 years. As a millennial, I can testify that the never offline and always available workplace is all that we know. Turning off work at 5 p.m. is frankly an antiquated practice. There's this always-on approach to life that requires blending work and life together. And something that resonated with me that I read recently was a quote that work has shifted from a place to a space. Work is a space in your life that needs to be filled. It is part of your life. It is not just a place where you go and come home with a paycheck, which means that there's more pressure on employers to deliver a fulfilling work environment than ever before. And to protect your bottom line, you have to attract and retain the right people. It's not just about hiring people, it's the right people. Millennials specifically are a generation that are going to begin a job search by thinking about where they will find meaning in their work and where they will be engaged. And they strive to find a place of employment that will provide those things before they even consider some of the tangible benefits that an employer might offer, or something like the industry reputation associated with the business. And research has proven the younger the employee, the more engagement matters. According to Gallup, a few stats here, turnover among millennials costs the American economy over $30 billion every year. About 55% of millennials are not engaged at work, and over 50% of millennials see themselves leaving for a new job in less than 2 years. That's a lot of turnover, and the cost of turnover is significant for a business. It's one of the biggest risks to the bottom line, and it can be the result of a weak talent brand. Across the U.S., it's costing us $11 billion annually, according to the Bureau of National Affairs. There are just so many statistics that come from Gallup, Deloitte, LinkedIn, SHRM, and more, who have studied the importance of hiring the right talent, which is engaged talent. And it's important that we're talking about the risks and opportunities to the bottom line associated with these hiring strategies. So I'm going to go through a few here within this slide and next slide. So one of these findings is that employers need to spend the equivalent of employers will spend the equivalent of 6 to 9 months of an employee's salary in order to find and train their replacement, and that's at a minimum. So that might seem expensive, but think of things like someone leaving causing decreased morale. People are sad. Maybe this is someone who's a big culture driver. The recruiting expenses associated with, posting that job. Job postings can come at $250 a pop. you think about all the time you're paying that these recruiters or your internal team to focus on that process. Also, you have probably several billable employees walking away from billable work to be involved in the recruitment process. And then once you actually make that hire, there will be additional lost billable time for training and onboarding. And it also results in lower productivity for the people involved in training and development, but also the new hire, once they're in the role, is going to take a couple months to ramp up to be as productive as someone who was trained and fully operating in that role previously. This can lead to decreased quality of client service and potentially, ultimately, revenue loss. But on the flip side, if you hire the right people, you have the opportunity to double your rate of success in the marketplace, and overall will be 22% more productive. A strong recruitment strategy and the associated talent brand enables you to experience an increase in revenue, cut your cost per hire in half, triple your chance at making quality hires, earn an uptick in employer referrals and diversity, and ultimately, your clients will be happier and buy more business from you. I think that these numbers really help to sell the value of hiring and engaging top talent through your brand, and hopefully they're resonating with you. So remember that ultimately, a highly engaged workforce means the difference between a company that outperforms its competitors and one that fails to grow. So I've talked about engagement a few times already, and before we dive deeper into the power of employee engagement and an engaged workforce, I do want to briefly cover how employer brand and talent brand have evolved and define how these two branches of the brand are different, in my mind at least. Of course, we all recognize that a company brand has traditionally referred to industry reputation and client service. When businesses started to invest more in building brand identity to include the employee experience, which was really catered to the business goal of attracting and retaining talent, most of that content was focused on how the employer could provide job satisfaction. So competitive pay, robust and affordable insurance coverage, flexible hours, ability to work remotely, paid time off. These are all examples of how businesses highlighted why they were a great place to work. These tangible benefits create the foundation for an employer brand, which is really the perception of how the market views you as a suitable place to work. Then the market became more competitive, and the continued evolution of technology, social media, data, and information sharing, coupled with the tightening labor market, catalyzed what I think was a more strategic approach to employer branding, and talent brand as an extension of employer brand became a hot topic. In this case, the employer brand, I think, represents employee satisfaction, and the talent brand speaks to engagement, which I'll go through a little bit more in depth shortly. But it's gained so much momentum, and market demand continues to grow, and I think that talent brand has really earned its own specialized attention and strategic approach within brand identity. Businesses, I think, need to be sure to market how they provide meaningful experiences for employees, and they're doing so by highlighting learning and development programs, succession planning, community service opportunities, and many other experiences that help to showcase how the business supports employee engagement in a way that really enforces the company's values and culture, culture really being at the core of every aspect of a business's brand identity. So today when I'm talking about employer and talent brand, I want to make sure that it's clear that I'm not using those terms interchangeably. I believe that there's a strategic purpose to considering these two components of brand separate entities. I think about employer brand speaking to employee satisfaction. It's really a measurement of an employee's happiness with their current job and conditions. So it's talking to tangible things about what makes your business a good place to work. And talent brand is speaking to engagement, or the measurement of an employee's emotional commitment to your organization. It's taking into account the amount of discretionary effort that employees expend on behalf of your organization. And what I think is important to note here is that you can own your employer brand. It's 100% within your control because they're tangible things about your business, but you can't necessarily own your talent brand. the way your people feel about you and how they share their experiences, then the respective perception of their audiences is something that you can help to influence, but you can't create it. I think engaged employees are the most productive employees who will be the strongest advocates for your talent brand, which is why it's really imperative to understand the power of engagement as it relates to your brand and ultimately your business results. So I won't spend too much time on this slide because I know you've all seen Maslow's hierarchy of needs before, but in the context of employee engagement, think about satisfied employees being at the bottom of this pyramid. Their basic needs are being met, and engagement is at the top of the pyramid. This is where intangibles that live within your people, culture, and values are coming to life within your talent brand. In today's competitive war for talent, I think that brands absolutely have to speak to engagement and talent brand in order to really be able to attract and retain that top talent. And making high-quality hires has enormous impact on your company's revenue. Frankly, top talent just performs better. There's research that was recently published in the journal Personnel Psychology, and it finds that 10% of an organization's productivity comes from its top 1% of employees, and 26% of its output can be credited to the top 5% of its workforce. And that's a lot of stats and hard for me to understand. I had to read through that a couple times. So put more simply, in other words, top talent or engaged employees produces 4 times as much as the average or satisfied employee. So if it feels like I'm beating you over the head with engagement, it's probably because I am. I really feel passionate about that, and I think that the impact of employee engagement, which can be driven through talent brand, has incredibly significant impact on tangible business results. So as I mentioned earlier, you can double your success in the marketplace, and an increase in productivity is equal to an increase in profitability. Also, turnover and absenteeism decrease. Actually, depression diagnoses are most common in actively disengaged employees, according to Gallup, and anxiety and depression disorders cost employers over $1 trillion annually, and that's a stat that comes from the World Health Organization. And naturally then, if you think about those 2 stats and think about work quality, it will improve, and defects will drop by about 40% when your employees are engaged. So another thing to talk about is people management, and I could seriously go on forever about the impact of strong management within organizations, but specifically to note here, managers are responsible for a 70% variance in employee engagement. So if they're trained properly, employee engagement will double, and that leads to 150% higher earnings per share, according to Gallup, so it's pretty significant. Also note that employee engagement drops to almost nothing, 2%, when management is disengaged. Ultimately, of course, then, you can expect customer loyalty to increase significantly when employees are engaged. This is really marketing 101, right? Happy people equal happy customers. So, circling back to the evolution of brand identity, let's face it, everyone has competitive benefits these days. You should not have to work hard to showcase that you offer competitive pay, insurance, time away from work, or other benefits along those lines. People can find that anywhere. Your talent brand showcases the intangibles, the reasons that people are choosing to work with you and stay with you. So ask yourself, what engages your people? What motivates them? The answers to those questions are the key to defining your differentiator within your talent brand, and that should always align with your firm's formal brand identity and culture. Additionally, the concept of employer value proposition, or EVP, has floated in and out of the spotlight for a couple decades. EVP, frankly, is simply just a copy and paste terminology from marketing's customer value proposition, in most cases drawing parallels between the customer and client experiences. So within professional services, the alignment of EVP and CVP is more relevant because both are centered around people. A strong EVP leads to a strong CVP because a strong EVP is what's going to attract high performers and engages current employees, and your employees are driving innovation, quality deliverables, strong customer support, increased productivity, and All these things result in a stronger CVP and more revenue. But I know I commonly hear that this concept poses the old chicken or the egg question about what comes first. Does engagement truly lead to better outcomes, business outcomes, or do successful companies just have more engaged employees? And also, does that linkage work in both directions? As statisticians like to remind us, correlation is not necessarily causation. I found this diagram in an article in Forbes, and it's called the engagement profit chain. And I really find it valuable. You know, there are over 30 studies that show how engagement correlates to decreases in absenteeism, turnover, and also correlates to increases in customer service, productivity, sales, profits. The suggested causality is that engagement, or the emotional commitment that someone has to their organization and its goals, drives higher levels of discretionary effort. Despite the impressive literature that shows correlation between engagement and business outcomes, there's far less research showing causality. Many are wondering maybe employees are just more engaged when their employees are growing because bonuses are big and stock prices are climbing. But there was an important study published in the Journal of Occupational and Organizational Psychology recently that reported that indeed engagement has a more positive, more of an impact on business unit performance than vice versa. So this just again goes to show how important it is to be considerate of employee engagement as you're thinking about your business results and your bottom line. So now that I feel like I've probably appropriately talked enough about engagement, I do want to go through a few key steps for assessing and building your talent brand. Establishing and defining your values and culture, identifying and auditing touch points, creating a strategic relationship or a partnership between marketing and recruitment or HR, evaluate your recruitment process, and finally track your metrics. So I'll go through each of these with a couple of examples. You know, it's tough enough to stand out from the crowd when you sell something tangible like a product, but it's exponentially harder to distinguish your business from its competitors when what you're selling is intangible, so a service or advice, thought leadership, et cetera. The key to a consistent and authentic brand identity is to ensure that your values, your culture, your mission, or your purpose are all coming through to all of your audiences. Why are your employees engaged? How and why do they find meaning in their work? Why do they choose to work for you over competitors? Use that to develop your differentiator and competitive talent brand. So, my all-time favorite example of a strong talent brand that empowered its employees to feel meaning and purpose in their work is from NASA. President John F. Kennedy was visiting NASA headquarters for the first time in 1961, and when he was touring the facility, he introduced himself to a janitor. He had asked the janitor, you know, what do you do here at NASA? And the janitor replied, well, I'm helping to put a man on the moon. And I love this example because it just shows that this janitor, he got it. He understood the vision of what his company was doing, his part in it, and he therefore felt like he had a meaningful purpose within his job. He could have been a janitor at any other company, but he was happy and he enjoyed doing it for NASA because he was helping to put a man on the moon, and that was meaningful to him and motivated him and engaged him. But you also have to consider all of your touch points. So this, to get started, I'd say the most important thing to think about is your career site or your careers page. This is really home base. It's the center of your talent brand ecosystem. This is where prospective employees go to find the information that they need to decide whether or not they want to engage with you. In most cases, I think your career site, your careers page is the hook that leads potential talent to other sources of information. I do want to highlight that I think a surprising piece of information that's been found in various studies is that millennials don't start their job search through social media, as it's commonly assumed. While millennials are a social media-driven generation, it is consistent across all generations that the #1 place for job seekers to look for quality information is on a business's career page or career site. So definitely dedicate lots of resources towards working on that, and if you successfully hook the talent there, they will likely move on to other channels. It is possible for a really active job seeker that they're likely to first encounter your business or an opportunity with your firm through an open position on a job board. It's important that when you post job descriptions to job boards, such as Career Builder, Indeed, or others, you find a way to incorporate your culture and values and maybe even a short company description into your job descriptions. And this is particularly important when the job board does not offer a company page that showcases your brand, such as LinkedIn, for example. As also I mentioned earlier, you really can't control your talent brand, but you can influence it. So if you're thinking about blogs and forums and social channels, think about, for instance, Glassdoor. If you're getting negative reviews, what are the trends or themes there? Do you address those somewhere within your website or your careers page or somewhere within your brand identity? Is it something that you talk about? I think people commonly make the mistake of attracting talent with a highlight reel. And really what you should be doing is taking pride in owning all parts of your brand, the positives and the negatives. Because if you're not sending that balanced message to the marketplace, then, and if you're afraid to address any negatives, it's just going to appear inauthentic. Today's job seekers are smart shoppers and more informed than ever. So even if you're not addressing the negatives, they will find them. So while, that perception is never entirely within your control, you do have the opportunity to influence perceptions and sometimes even turning those negative perceptions into strengths by acknowledging them. And I'll cover an example shortly from GE who did just that. Another key trick is to make it easy for employees to share and contribute to social media channels. Team outings, community service, and any kind of sentimental experience that employees share willingly without being solicited will help to definitely elevate the positive aspects of your culture and brand. And frankly, prospective employees would much rather hear from your current employees over HR or your CEO or managing partners. It's going to feel more authentic coming from someone who's living within the role and the day-to-day experience that they would also have. Also, when thinking about social channels, think quality over quantity. People are going to shop around, so don't advertise in channels where you don't have bandwidth to monitor and enhance and engage with that content. I think we tend to assume that we need to be everywhere and do everything, but the reality is it's more impactful to have a couple key channels that are really engaging and contain a lot of quality content versus a ton of different channels that really don't share anything meaningful with your intended audiences. And finally, consider who your non-employee ambassadors are. Do you have connections with universities, charities, associations, or are there other ways that you are active in the community? And think about how you can capitalize on those touch points as well. So a great example of a company that has a robust careers site and quality touch points throughout their job boards is UnitedHealth Group. Their careers site is easily accessible from their main website and very easily searchable. They include information on benefits and company perks, which speak to the employer brand, and they also talk through things like culture, and they include different sources of multimedia that demonstrate diversity, a safe work environment that certainly helps speak to their talent brand as well. Their job descriptions are super informative, and also the ability to apply is mobile friendly, which is a big easy apply ability that is huge in making sure that you're going to get applications from the people who are interested in you. And they're very transparent about the interview process and hiring criteria. And finally, they're including employee testimonials, and some of those are within video and different multimedia sources as well. So they just really are killing it with their careers site, but also their presence on job boards is awesome. Their open positions are posted on 7 or more of the designated what are considered the mainstream job boards. So no matter where you search, Indeed, Glassdoor, Monster, LinkedIn, and the list goes on, UnitedHealth Group has a presence and a quality presence on every job board, and their mission statement appears everywhere very consistently. On the topic of community involvement, I think Target does a great job elevating their talent brand by showing that they are actively involved in the community. They have a designated page about community outreach, and within that, there's designated content about diversity, gender equality, corporate ethics, sustainability, veteran recruitment, and many other really intangible and unique parts about a socially responsible business that your top talent wants to hear about. So another key step here in assessing and building your talent brand is considering that partnership and collaboration between marketing and recruitment or HR teams. An effective talent brand is doing more than just helping you attract talent. It also helps you to keep them once they're in the door. Your talent branding efforts should ensure that the promises you're making during the recruitment phase are fulfilled throughout the rest of the entire employee life cycle. So be clear from the outset about what new hires can expect from your company, and you will avoid some of the potential mismatches that can result in increased turnover. When working on talent brands, marketers have to collaborate with the people who are responsible for recruiting and the people who are responsible for engagement to make sure that the messaging is consistent across all channels, both internally and externally. A message that resonates at a deeper level is really going to help to validate your talent brand. So one thing that the HR team or the recruiting team can do is to talk to your top performers, ask them why they're engaged, what motivates them to come to work every day, and why do they stay motivated. Those are the same things that others, ideal candidates, will be searching for when they're looking for somewhere to work and be engaged, and hopefully you want them to find those things with your firm, so you want to highlight them. Also, that should really be your differentiator in what you're selling. And asking your high performers about their motivators to choose you as an employer, finding out why they chose you, and like I said, what makes them stay, why are they leaving, and figuring out what they value about working for your organization is key. And then I think, when you're working with marketing on the messaging, a smart move is to use your employees as sounding board. And once you have that messaging, relay it back to them and see if it's resonating. Also, if you're creating an EVP or developing talent brand messaging in isolation, you could run the risk of, employees saying, I don't recognize this. This doesn't feel right. And an EVP is pretty aspirational, but if all the ways that an EVP is being executed are aspirational and not grounded in reality, employees will definitely be saying, that's not where I work. I'm not sure what this messaging is, but wow, I'd love to work there. And you don't want that to feel inauthentic to your current talent in particular, never mind how that mixed messaging sends bad signals to prospective talent and even your customers. I think the other group that HR can own meeting with is exiting employees. So conducting exit interviews with employees who leave can help you to really assess where expectations after completing an interview process were not matched in the employee experience. And this is a really great way to test the validity of the talent brand messaging that you have created. And I think finally, once HR and recruiting has identified all these themes and motivators and other key components to be incorporated into your talent brand, that's the best time to bring in marketing and let marketing do what they do best. They know how to craft compelling messaging. So marketing and recruiting should really work together on this, and marketing helping to ensure that the C-suite or managing partners or other really highly visible employees within your organization understand and buy into and can eloquently speak to your talent brand messaging is so important. So, like I mentioned, I want to talk a little bit about General Electric. They have a strong recruitment marketing collaboration within their business, and they do a great job at recruitment marketing. So today, Recruitment marketing obviously needs to capture emotion. It has to be sincere and original. Companies need their people to share the organization's EVP, career opportunities, and experiences. GE just received a perfect score in the 2018 Fortune 500 Top 100 Employment Brands Report for the following reasons. Their company has a talent community. They offer thought leadership. There's an active blog on their website with posts written by employees of the company. They have career-specific social media pages, corporate social media pages, an indexing hashtag representing company culture, and finally, culture and testimonials through external sources are provided as well. But my favorite thing is the What's Wrong with Owen campaign. So GE has a great example of turning a negative perception about their brand into a strength, which ended up being the focus of their What's Wrong with Owen recruiting campaign. So Owen is if you haven't seen the campaign, Owen is a recent college graduate who landed his first job, and he's, having some drinks here with a couple of his friends, and his other friend also just landed his first job, and they're both developers who write code, and his one friend just got a job programming an app where you can put like melons on cats' heads or something, and Owen's like, well, yeah, but, I'm going to be programming the machines that help the hospitals run more efficiently, and it just doesn't seem as sexy as some of those other apps that are out there. So GE knew that it had this negative perception tied to it, that it was a company in manufacturing. So they obviously must not hire software developers or offer any kind of innovative or creative job opportunities. GE poked fun at this perception and created this campaign. The best thing they did is that they showed the Owen campaign to employees first to ensure it resonated, and everybody loved it. They kind of mentioned that all of them had sat around Thanksgiving tables with family members and friends explaining what GE actually does. The perception of the manufacturing industry just has not kept pace with the reality that the industry has gone from truly relying on some less skilled assembly line type of work to highly valued dynamic tech skills and other creative professionals, and that includes, design, project management, other engineering professionals, and they made sure that they could create a campaign that made sure to defy that perception that was out there. And after they did this, applications spiked 8 times after the series was debuted. It's also important, one of our steps here, to check for consistency in your recruitment strategy. And that's consistency both in the process itself as well as the experience. I think when you think of the tactical process, think about your employer brand. This is table stakes. You want to be an ethical place to work, so make sure your process is consistent and leads to fair and ethical, compliant hiring practices for anyone who interacts with your brand, whether they are a potential hire or not. And the experience, the way candidates are treated, how they feel during the process, should really mirror the experience that they have throughout the rest of their employee life cycle. Make sure values and culture are reinforced in the process. Really, your goal is to ensure a seamless digital recruitment process that introduces the transparency, authenticity, and the personal touch that you expect employees to experience, not only in the onboarding process, but, like I said, throughout the course of their employee life cycle. So a key step here that I think is often missed is also training your interviewers or anyone involved in the recruitment process. Make sure that these employees know the top key qualities of what makes someone a high performer at your firm. Are they checking for culture fit as well as assessing hard skills? What's their role in the process? Make sure they understand that. And what's so tricky is really sort of balancing the need to qualify candidates, but then also sell the opportunities. So recruitment teams need to really train those involved in the interview process to be able to balance those two objectives delicately and strategically. So for those of you on the line who have been to One North Experience Lab, you may remember that in 2016, I talked about Robert W. Baird, which is a privately held financial services firm headquartered in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where I'm from. At the time that I talked about Baird at XLab, they were ranked number 6 on Fortune magazine's 100 best companies to work for, and that was their 13th consecutive year on this list. I think that Baird has been ahead of its time in its talent messaging because Baird has always placed equal weight in their EVP and their CVP. Their mission statement is to provide the best financial advice and service to our clients and be the best place to work for our associates. And that was their mission statement long before talent and employer brand became such a hot and trendy topic. Baird's differentiator is really their commitment to their employees, which carries equal weight as their commitment to their clients, and that's really unique in a PSO vertical that's been traditionally marketed as being customer-centric. So Baird lives this out even with prospective employees. When a candidate visits the career page, a candidate can find resources to help him or her succeed in the interview process, and that's the same level of expectation that they can receive as an employee. They're going to get help from the company in helping to build their career and being successful in everything that they do. So finally, metrics. Make sure your recruiters are tracking why candidates wanted to engage with you and how they found you. Once you learn what channels are most successful in bringing top talent to you, you can optimize those resources and then also think about how to reapproach the channels that may be struggling to provide the results you're really looking for. Quality of hire, I'd say look at things like length of service, performance rating, productivity, satisfaction or engagement. This is where you can test if your talent brand is reflecting what it's actually like to work for you. And if not, it's going to lead to dissatisfied and less productive employees who will not stay with you for long, meaning that the quality of hire is low. Retention, of course, and I, tend to say that take retention with a grain of salt, right? Because retention is not as bad of a thing for companies always in the instance that you continue to evolve and hold your people to higher performance standards, you're growing your talent brand and you're hiring better and better people. Like retention can sort of be a positive and negative, but what I will say is to look at retention specifically within your high performers. Low voluntary attrition signals a good employer brand because your new and your current employees are staying with you for a reason. And then also the acceptance rates of offers that you extend. Keep track of how many applicants reject your job offers and ask for feedback about why you're not their employer of choice. I also think it's important to find out which company they've chosen to go to instead, and also to note if they do drop out of the process before you get to a point of offer, but it was a great candidate who you really wanted to continue interviewing. Start to track the stage of the process that great candidates likely drop out, and understanding if there's something that was missing leading up to that point in the process where you could have better marketed your talent brand will help you to reconsider your recruitment process, which is another key step in assessing and building your brand. Obviously, employee referrals are very well known as being the #1 source of quality hires, and certainly employees recommending you to their family, their friends, their networks as a great place to work means that they have positive feelings about you. So as your as your efforts to build your talent brand increase, you should see an increase in the rate of employee referrals. Your giveaway takeaway ratio. So this measures how many of your applicants come through direct competitors or come from direct competitors, and how many of your current employees leave to join the competition. And I never actually like to recommend that people compare their talent brands to their direct competitors, at least when building their brand, for the reason that you shouldn't be thinking, oh, company X offers this or that and I don't, so let's start to offer that and market it. That's the wrong approach, at least at the beginning. You should really only be marketing the things that are authentic core pieces of your employee experience. However, it is good to understand if you're putting enough power behind your talent brand efforts based on what you uncover in your giveaway takeaway ratio. And then finally, one of the best measurements is your Net Promoter Score. Your EVP and CVP should trend in parallels, and that will be directly reflected in your NPS and your employee surveys. So if you're seeing trends that are not aligned here, it's probably time to revisit if there needs to be a strategic effort to better align your 3 buckets of brand identity, because as you work to create an engaged workforce and you're building a talent brand that enables you to hire top talent, you should also see an increase in your NPS based on what your clients are saying about you. So finally, I'm going to leave you here with a little food for thought, and that is that without a strong culture that supports employee engagement, a strong talent brand simply cannot exist. So marketing, how are you going to get to know your people as intimately as HR and recruiting do? How are you going to learn about their motivators, and how are you going to help them tell their stories? And recruiting, HR, talent, people, professionals, what are you doing to enhance the employee experience so that marketing has a strong talent brand to market and sell? So with that kind of wraps up the content I had prepared today, but I will say, ultimately your employees are the ones who are going to drive your culture, your work, and your company reputation. So if you're focused on them, everything else will fall into place. But thank you very much for listening, and I think we'll take some questions.
Just a reminder, if you have a question, you can submit it using the chat function located either in the lower right-hand corner of your screen or within the blue drop-down bar at the top of your screen. Because we always get this question, I'll remind the audience that we will be sending out the recording and slides of this webinar in the next few business days to everyone who is registered. We're going to take a minute to collect the questions we've received, and then we will be right back to start the Q&A section. Thanks, everyone. So, Sarah, question 1, how can talent brand work be done on a small budget?
I think anytime that I ever talk about this topic, that's always the #1 question. So good question, and I think the reason it is such a frequently asked question is also because in a lot of firms there are not actually dedicated resources towards the talent brand budget. There's a marketing budget, there's a recruiting budget, and it's up to the marketing and recruiting teams to sort of join forces to dedicate those resources to talent brands. So this is a very real question and concern, and a frequent obstacle that I see for people responsible for building talent brands. But let's see, I think what comes to mind for me, there's the phrase, don't boil the ocean. I don't think that you should have to feel like you have to tackle every aspect of talent brand at once. So I would revisit what your priority goals are. So let's say that one of your key goals is attracting talent within a certain department of your firm. Do some persona mapping for those key positions you're hiring for, and when you have an idea of who the people are that you're trying to attract and what their drivers are, you can really cater some of your early talent branding efforts around connecting with that audience, And then I think the other thing that you can do is to ensure that, you probably already have lots of different social media channels that exist, but if you can empower employees to easily share their stories, it will really magnify your efforts. So, you should think about your employees as brand ambassadors or brand advocates, whatever you want to call them, because you can't be everywhere at once, you being, marketers, recruiters, whoever's responsible for the talent brand. And frankly, from my experience, I think that employee-generated content tends to land much better than something created by marketing or recruiting or the C-suite anyway. So make sure that there's easy channels for your employees to share their stories. And then, the other thing that I will say, the other thing that comes to mind is that I wouldn't focus too much on a strategic EVP and a CVP. Like that's for employers who have a really well-defined employer branding effort and talent branding effort, and the EVP is sort of the step that allows you to continue to build on it. But the sooner that you can start telling stories about your experiences, the sooner you start to build your talent brand, and an EVP can kind of wait until later. So don't get too caught up on the EVP piece, thinking that you need to invest all this time thinking about what your value proposition is. Just start talking about the reality of what your business is like today, and that's the best thing you can do to really kick off a talent brand without spending time and money and resources on all of the research and everything else behind creating that messaging.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. The next question we have for you is around ownership. Who should assume ownership of the talent brand? In a similar vein, what's the role of line in terms of operations in the talent brand process?
Got it. Yeah, I think it's really a tricky question, and I think that honestly it really depends organization to organization. Obviously, as I've been sort of speaking to, that partnership between marketing and your people function of the business, whether that's HR, recruitment, organization development, learning and development, just any of those types of functions, marketing should partner with them strategically rather than considering that sort of back of house. And I think that the reason that that partnership is so important is because oftentimes marketing has more access to tools and other things that recruitment teams or HR teams don't have access to. But recruitment teams HR teams are going to know more intimately what the employee experience is like, and HR teams work closely with recruitment teams who know what the candidate experience is like. So marketers will also be wildly more successful when they're taking into account the perception that your recruiting and HR teams have. And then obviously recruiters these days, like I think there's a few people in recruiting on the line, and obviously my background is as a talent acquisition professional, and I will say that any efforts that we've ever had for recruiting have just been so much more wildly successful with the help of marketing, and it broadens your perspective, and it allows you to reach people in a more unique and meaningful way. And then I think that at the end of the day, it really, the ownership of your talent brands, it lives with your employees, and if you're not focusing efforts on helping them to feel engaged, then your talent brand will really suffer, because your talent brand should be an authentic way of communicating what the experience is like for your employees. So if you can't find resources to partner together within marketing or recruitment or any other function, I'd say just make sure that your internal communication strategy includes empowering your employees to be able to speak to the messaging that you want potential recruits or others to hear. That will definitely help to support your brand.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. Because we started a little late, I think we're going to wrap up the Q&A portion of our webinar. But if you still have any questions, feel free to submit them last minute. We'll follow up with anyone who we didn't answer. But thank you guys so much for your patience at the beginning of this webinar and for sticking with us throughout it. Like I said before, we'll be sending out the slides and recording sometime early next week. But have a wonderful rest of your week. Thanks, everyone.